A warm good morning to my dazzling students of Sri Gokulam Public School. This is Nidha ma'am with you, and we are into yet another English online class. I hope my dear darlings are all doing well and good. In the last class, we had started a story from the snapshots text, that is Mother's Day. We discussed that Mrs. Fitzgerald and Mrs. Pearson were having a heated conversation on how to set things straight and right at Mrs. Pearson's house. Mrs. Pearson, being a naive and a gentle kind of a woman, was often treated like a servant and taken by granted by her family members. Mrs. Fitzgerald was very much angry and upset with the situation and was rebuking or scolding Mrs. Pearson, asking her to be the boss of the house. Seeing that Mrs. Pearson does not have the grit or the courage to give instructions to her family, Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is a fortune teller and who knows magic, wants to try out her skills with Mrs. Pearson. So, as agreed upon, both of them change their bodies. In fact, it is that they change their souls. Mrs. Pearson now has got Mrs. Fitzgerald's soul, and the opposite happens with Mrs. Fitzgerald. Mrs. Fitzgerald now asks Mrs. Pearson to go and stay in a house and enjoy a me time or a lonely time. We find that now Doris has entered their house and Mrs. Fitzgerald is easing on a chair with smoking a cigarette. As I said, from henceforth in the story, Mrs. Fitzgerald will be addressed as Mrs. Pearson because that is how her body appears to be. Doris enters the house giving instructions to her mother to iron a yellow silk dress which she requires for the same night. But Doris, seeing that her mother is smoking, is very startled and shocked, and she almost yells at her, asking her what she is doing. But Mrs. Pearson, now with having the soul of Mrs. Fitzgerald, is very cool and calm, and she answers to her 20-year-old over-pampered child that, "Can't you see what I am doing?" Doris is very much confused, and from their conversation we understand that this is the first time that Mrs. Pearson is smoking in their house. Mrs. Pearson gives very sarcastic and nutty kind of answers to her daughter by telling her, "What do you think I'm doing? Am I whitewashing the house?" Such kinds of back answers are given to her daughter. Pearson also goes on to inform Doris that there is no tea prepared in the house when she asks for tea. Again, here also Doris is very much confused because she is asking her mother, "Where is the tea? Are we going to have tea in the kitchen?" and such things. So Mrs. Pearson very clearly informs her that tea is not prepared, and not only that, the happy news is that she is not even planning to prepare dinner. They might as well go out and have a dinner for that night. Now all these things are very unusual in their house. Normally the scene would be that when Doris comes into the house or other family members comes into the house, the tea would be prepared and set on the table and they would just drink it and walk out of the house. Instructions were given to the mother to do this or do that, and the mother would be running around doing things for the family. So here they find a complete change in the character of Mrs. Pearson. Seeing that Mrs. Pearson is behaving in a very strange manner, now Doris starts to complain and fret. She says that she has had a very hectic day at work and she is not in a mood for all these kinds of tantrums from her mother. She also reminds her of the instruction that she had given her mother, that was to iron her yellow silk dress. Very quickly, Mrs. Pearson answers that she is not even intending to do that for Doris. She also reminds Doris that there is no need of fretting or complaining about doing a hard work at job because Mrs. Pearson is doing double the hard labor. Only thing is that she is not paid for the kind of work that she puts into. She also inquires her for what reason she wants the yellow dress to be ironed. Doris very sulkily tells that she wants to meet her boyfriend Charlie and they are going to have a date. Mrs. Pearson now again answers very sarcastically to Doris and says her that she has got a very bad choice in Charlie Spence. She goes on to the extent of insulting Charlie Spence by telling that he is buck-teethed and half-witted, which means that he does not look good and he is a very foolish kind of a person. Now Doris is very angry and she tries to argue with her mother by telling her that Charlie is not such. Mrs. Pearson is least bothered about the argument and the justifications that Doris has to give, and she says that not only is Charlie very foolish, in fact her own daughter is very foolish in choosing Charlie as her boyfriend. She says that at her age, Mrs. Pearson herself was much more intelligent and smarter than Doris herself. Now Doris feels completely insulted and she runs into the room crying for what has happened on that evening. Seeing the childish character in Doris, Mrs. Pearson laughs and stays there unmoved and unbothered. She again picks up the cards and begins putting the cards together. The moment Cyril enters in, he is also behaving with a pre-assumed notion that tea is ready, and he just takes it that the tea is already prepared for him. But Mrs. Pearson very clearly tells that she did not make tea and she does not intend to make tea. So Cyril in the beginning is concerned and he is asking whether his mother is not feeling well. So she tells that no, I have feeling very good in my life, and she just decided not to make tea. Cyril is upset and he is asking the mother to just be in proper mood and do the things in the house. It's an almost kind of an instruction given to the mother. He is also asking his mother whether she had moved the furniture out from his room, which needs some mending works to be done. Mrs. Pearson also answers to that she has not did it. And also at this moment she feels that she is not willing to do it also. Cyril is getting more and more irritated and says that now this is not the way how you are supposed to speak in the house, and imagine if all of them had spoken like that to each other in the house. Being more of an adult, he feels that he has the right to boss around the house. Mrs. Pearson says that it is not that suppose if they all had behaved like that, the fact is that they all do behave like that in the house with her. And she also says that if something is not done at work, there is always a union for the workers to join and get their rights or demands fulfilled. So imagine that their mother has also joined a union or a labor movement because she wants her rights and her needs to be protected. So that is what she means by telling that if there is something at work, you get the union to bar it. Now all that has happened is that I have joined the movement. In the simple sense, meaning that she is in a kind of a strike. At this moment, Doris enters into the room and she is seen red-eyed because she has been crying and she has changed into something more of a comfortable kind of a dressing. Mrs. Pearson sees that she is not in her party wear, says that the dressing is not fit for meeting a fool like Charlie Spence. Doris says that she has cancelled her meeting with Charlie Spence, and the reason is their mother, and she has made her cry. At this moment, Mrs. Pearson now wants to irritate the children more, and she is asking if there is some alcohol in the kitchen left over for her to drink. This again makes the children feel very startled because their mother never drank alcohol. She moves into the kitchen to search for alcohol, or stout as it is mentioned in the story. While Mrs. Pearson is out from the room, there is a conversation between Doris and Cyril. Both of them are confused, but Doris now feels a little more calm because she realizes that she is behaving the same with her brother also. Both of them now have a discussion, and Doris feels that she has got a head injury, whereas Cyril feels that their mother have gone mad. Anyways, they both agree on the fact that their mother is behaving in a very strange manner. Doris now starts to giggle when she imagines what would happen if their father had entered the house, seeing their mother behave in such a manner. She feels that the situation would be a very funny kind of one. Hearing their giggles, Mrs. Pearson enters the room, and she assumes that both of them were speaking negative about Mrs. Pearson. So she scolds them in a very cold manner by telling that, why don't you just grow up and be mature and stop talking behind the back of other people. She also asked the children what they were laughing on so that she could also have a laugh about it. As like all teenage or grown-up children, her children also tells that it is no use telling her the jokes because she would never understand them. Mrs. Pearson very teasingly tells them, of course, it is very, very dull and boring kinds of jokes. Definitely, she would never be able to understand them. Doris is again tearful, and she says that why do you talk in a very negative manner, and she wants to know the reason. She says that there is no particular reason for her sudden change of character. It is just that she had decided to change for good. Now Cyril tells that since the tea is not ready, he wants to find something to eat. Mrs. Pearson tells, of course, go into the kitchen and cook something and eat for yourself. Cyril is on his way to the kitchen, but he warns his mother, telling that now this is getting a little bit out of control. Doris also feels the same. Cyril tells that he has been working for 8 hours a day and he needs to rest when he comes back home. Doris also agrees to the fact that coming back home, they need to rest after a hectic day at work. Mrs. Pearson reminds them that she has been also working a hard labor at day, so she also needs to rest in the evening. Both the children feel that the kind of labor that they do at a job and the kind of labor that their mother puts in the house is totally different. Mrs. Pearson reminds them that it was, but it isn't now. She tells that she is just going to work for 40 hours every week, and at the weekends she is going to take a day off. Cyril does not want to continue this conversation because he is very, very hungry, and so he goes into the kitchen to grab something to eat. Doris, who is very startled by this proclamation of their mother, asks her, Mummy, you don't mean that you are going to do anything on Saturday and Sunday? Mrs. Pearson, in a very attitudinal manner, says that, of course, I wouldn't stop working on a Saturday or a Sunday, but definitely she would do a little bit of household work like changing the bed sheets or a bit of cooking, but that also if she is requested very much by her family members. Of course, Not only that, she might even plan of going out on a weekend. Now, Doris cannot believe that their mother would go in for a holiday. So Pearson asked, why day after day I am stuck at home and why shouldn't I need a change? Now Doris cannot imagine where their mother would go out because she has never seen even a friend of her mother. So Mrs. Pearson says that is my business and you don't have to ask me what I do in my weekend or whom I do meet. She also says that she is old enough to take care of herself and she does not need the advice of her children on what she should do and whom she should meet. Doris is more concerned on her mother's very strange behavior and she is asking her mother, did she hit herself with something? Mrs. Pearson tells that no, but if she is going to keep on asking such silly questions, she is going to hit Doris with something. Doris again begins to cry and runs into the room. Mrs. Pearson very coldly says that you are not a baby and stop behaving in a very childish kind of a manner. Now at this point we have George Pearson, the man of the house, husband of Mrs. Annie Pearson, entering into the house. What happens next? Will Mrs. Pearson be able to continue her tantrums and instructions with George also? Let's continue the rest of the chapter in our next class. Thank you and have a wonderful day.